galaxy was burning. Star after star system had fallen to the Krail Dominion. Their fleets moved like a storm, cold and endless, sweeping through worlds and leaving nothing but silence behind. Once there had been Defender's brave ships, proud armadas, but those fleets now drifted in pieces among the stars, shattered and forgotten. In the quiet corner of the Orion Spur, far from the chaos, a small human patrol ship named Resolute floated in the darkness. Its crew had been told the war would never reach this far. They were told they were safe, but safety was a lie that the stars themselves could no longer hold. The first signal came in the middle of ship's night. It was broken like a voice gasping for air, hidden behind static. The comms officer frowned, tapping the console again and again, trying to clean the distortion. "Unidentified signal," she said, her voice tight, repeating every 30 seconds. The captain, Elias Reeve, was in his quarters. Arrived at the bridge, still pulling on his jacket, his hair a mess.
"Let's hear it,"
he ordered. The speakers crackled, her voice thin, shaking, drenched. And fear spoke for words before cutting into static. "If this reaches you, they are coming for Earth." The bridge fell silent. No one moved. The captain's jaw tightened. "Source?" he asked. The comms officer checked the readings. "Outer colonies Cestus 4, deep in the perimeter, that's..." She hesitated. "That's close to Dominion lines." "That's impossible," said one of the junior officers. "The perimeter fell months ago." The signal played again. Distorted, but unmistakable. Reeve looked at the crew. "Could be a trap," he said quietly, "or it could be the last voice from a dead world," replied Lieutenant Harris, the ship's tactical officer. "The official orders from Fleet Command were clear patrol their assigned space, stay out of enemy zones, and report any unusual signals. Do not engage." That was the standing rule. But this signal was not just unusual. It was a warning with Earth's name in it. The captain turned toward the helm. "Plot a course," he said. "Sir, going to find out what happened." On CESTUS-4, double quotes, the helmsman hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Yes, sir." Resolute turned its nose toward the dead edge of the galaxy. The journey was quiet at first. The stars passed like cold witnesses, their light older than the war. But as they crossed into the perimeter's old border, the evidence of the Dominion's work began to show. First came the debris fields, twisted hulls of ships that had fought and lost. Then came the dead stations orbiting in silence, their lights long extinguished. Each time they passed one, the crew stared. There was no sign of life, no distress beacons, no survivors. On the fourth day, they reached CS2S-4. From orbit, the planet was a dark scar. Cities once bright from space were nothing but blackened outlines. Forests were burned away, oceans boiled in great patches of steam and ash. "Scanning for survivors," the science officer whispered. The captain didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the planet's broken horizon. "Got something," the officer said suddenly. "Small pod. Low orbit? Life signs weak?" The captain's voice was sharp now. "Bring it aboard, medical team. Stand by." Minutes later, the pod was hauled into the ship's bay. Its hull was pitted with burn marks, half melted. Inside, they found a single figure, a man in a torn fleet uniform, barely conscious. His lips moved, but his voice was dry and faint. They rushed him to the med bay. When he finally opened his eyes, the captain was there. "Krail," the man rasped. They have a ship. Huge. No weapon can." He coughed violently, eyes wide with remembered fear. "It will break your worlds." "The spear? It burns through anything." "What spear?" Reeve pressed. But the man was fading again, slipping back into unconsciousness. The medics pushed the captain back too. Work. Later in the ready room, Reeve and his officers studied the data from the pod's recorder. It showed fragments of the last battle, brief flashes of light, Kane defense lines shattered in seconds. A single massive silhouette in the darkness. "That's the flagship," Harris said. "Must be that spear weapon. We've never seen anything like it." Fleet Command's message arrived less than an hour later. It was short and cold. "Return to assigned patrol." Do not investigate further. This is not your mission. The captain read the order twice, then shut it off. They want us to pretend this isn't happening, Harris said bitterly. They want us to survive, the comms officer replied. Reeves stared out the viewport at the dead planet below. Survival without action is just waiting for your turn to die, he said finally. Silence followed. Every crew member in that room knew what he meant. He stood, straightened his jacket, and looked each officer in the eye. Set course along the wreckage trail, he ordered. We find the Dominion's spear. We learn how to stop it. We do it before they reach Earth. No one argued. The engines roared to life, and Resolute slid away from the shadow of Cestus 4. Deeper into the darkness where the Dominion's fleet had passed, somewhere ahead was the flagship. Somewhere ahead was the weapon that could burn through worlds. And in that moment, the crew of Resolute knew they were crossing the line between patrol duty and war. The stars stretched ahead, cold and endless. The hunt had begun. The wreckage trail was easy to follow. For 3 days, the Resolute drifted quietly through the graveyard of broken fleets. Every few hours, they found another battlefield, hulks of warships drifting in slow silence, torn apart like paper. Some were human. Most were not. Old allies, neutral traders, even enemies who once fought each other now shared the same fate, cold and forgotten. Lieutenant Harris stood at the tactical station, scanning each wreck they passed. No heat, no life signs. Whoever did this, they didn't just win. They erased everything. The comms officer nodded grimly. These ships didn't even have time to send distress calls. The trail led them toward a system marked as a on old charts. It had been a small colony once rich in minerals, known for its great orbital trade hub. When Resolute arrived, the hub was gone, not damaged gone. The planet below was worse. The surface was gray, stripped bare. Massive scars ran across the land, as if something had dragged a blade the size of mountains over it. Scanning, said the science officer. His voice was quiet, almost reluctant. No cities, no power. Radiation spikes, high enough to kill in minutes. The captain stood in the center of the bridge, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the hollow world. Any survivors? Wait. The officer leaned forward. Something. Yes. One small signal. Deep in the asteroid ring. Looks like an escape pod'll design, maybe 6 months adrift. Bring it aboard, Reeve ordered. They caught the pod with the docking arms and pulled it into the bay. Its hull was scarred, almost split in two. Inside, a woman in a torn Enviro-suit floated limp, still strapped into her seat. Her breathing was shallow, lips blue from cold. Medics rushed her to the infirmary. When she woke hours later, she didn't speak at first. She stared at the ceiling, trembling. Then her eyes locked on Captain Reeve. You have to turn back. She whispered, You can't stop it. Stop what? Reeve asked gently. The spear ship, she said. It wasn't even a battle. It was execution. We fired everything, missiles, railguns, beams. Nothing touched it. Shields didn't. Even flicker. And then the spear lit. Her voice broke. What happened? She closed her eyes. The sky turned white. Ships, stations, everything. Gone in one strike. My ship broke apart. I drifted. I heard their voices on the comms. They weren't even fighting. They were laughing. The bridge crew listened. In silence when Reeve told them her story, it matched the wounded man's warning from Cestus 4. One weapon. One shot. Whole fleet's gone. Hours later. Long-range sensors detected something massive. Ahead energy readings far beyond any known vessel. The Dominion flagship was in the next system. Fleet Command sent another tight beam transmission. All patrols. Withdraw, repeat, withdraw immediately. This is a direct order. Reeve shut the message off without replying. He looked at his officers. They'll keep sweeping through worlds until someone stops them, he said. If not us, then who? The crew exchanged glances. No one volunteered to turn back. Bring us in slow, Reeve ordered. Silent running. No signals. We watch, we learn. Resolute crept forward into the shadow of the Dominion fleet. From the darkness, they saw it the spear ship. It dwarfed the other vessels, a jagged black silhouette against the stars. At its center was the weapon, a long, glowing shaft of impossible metal, pulsing faintly like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Even from here it looked unstoppable. Harris whispered, "If that thing reaches Earth..." The captain didn't take his eyes off it. "It won't." And in that moment, they all knew Resolute was not just following the trail anymore. They were hunting. The Resolute slid into the shadows of the enemy's territory, running dark. All external lights were off. Engines ran at minimum power. Even the ship's internal systems were dampened to keep their heat signature low. Mistake. One spike of energy, and the Krail fleet would know they were there. The debris fields grew thicker as they advanced. Shattered warships, human, alien, even ancient designs from species long gone, floated like frozen corpses in the void. Some still had burn marks that glowed faintly in the cold vacuum, as if the battle had ended only hours ago. "Keep us behind the wreckage," Captain Reeve ordered quietly. "Your sensors will have to fight through all this metal." The crew spoke in whispers, as if a frayed sound could travel through the void. Then the Dominion fleet came into view, even scattered across the system. The enemy ships moved with frightening coordination lines of black armored cruisers, heavy carriers bristling with fighters, and at the center, the spear ship. It was worse up close. The weapon's shaft glowed faintly, not with fire, but with some kind of energy that made the eye ache to look at. The ship's hull seemed a live surface shifting in patterns, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The tactical officer, Harris, kept scanning despite the risk. "That energy reading is unreal. It's charging at levels I've never seen. Sir, if it fires in this system, there will be nothing left." Suddenly, the spear ship fired. No warning, no warm-up. It's just a blinding line of white light that split the darkness in half. A defense station 300 kilometers away vanished. Instantly, no explosion, no debris, just gone. Gasps filled the bridge. "They didn't even aim," the science officer whispered. "It was just a test." Reeves' face was like stone. "They're showing off."
Their small escort ships began sweeping the system, scanning wreckage and hunting survivors.
One of them veered dangerously close to the Resolute's position. "Hold." "Course," Reeves said. His voice was calm, but his eyes stayed locked on the Predator gliding toward them. The Krail patrol passed, so close that the Resolute's hull shivered under the ripple of its shields. Then, just as quickly, it moved away. Disappearing into the debris, the crew exhaled as one. They watched the fleet tear through the last remnants of the local defenders. Dozens of ships tried to form a desperate wall, but the spear ship cut them apart in minutes. "We need to send this data to Fleet Command now," the comms officer said. "They have to see what we're seeing." Reeve shook his head. "We transmit, they'll detect us. We wait." The Resolute stayed hidden as the Dominion began to regroup. Then, the spear ship turned toward the system's outer edge, toward the next star, the next world. Reeve looked at the tactical display. "They're moving fast. We can't follow them openly." Harris glanced at him. "Sir, what are you thinking?" The captain's eyes were cold. "We don't follow their fleet. We get ahead of it." The crew stared. "They think nothing can stop them," Reeve continued. "That's a weakness. We use it." The plan began forming in his mind. A battle, but a hunt. And if they were lucky, the prey wouldn't realize it was being stalked until it was too late. The Resolute eased away from the wreckage, slipping deeper into the darkness, vanishing from the battlefield. Somewhere ahead, the Dominion's next target waited, and so would they. The Resolute moved ahead of the Dominion fleet, jumping through backwater systems and abandoned trade lanes to stay invisible. Every jump carried a risk. If they emerged too close to a Krail patrol, the hunt would be over before it began. "Captain." Reeve gathered his senior crew in the strategy room. A rotating projection of the spear ship floated above the table, glowing faintly in the dim light. "We can't match their firepower," he began. "One hit from that weapon, and we're done. So we don't fight them head-on. We set a trap." Harris leaned forward. "What kind of trap stops a ship that can erase a station in one shot?" Reeve tapped a control. The projection shifted to an asteroid belt on the edge of a red dwarf star system, Mining station, Thatnine, abandoned for decades, but its structure is still solid, enough to hide, and enough to blow apart if we pack it with the right charge. You're talking about a demolition bomb the size of a city, said the engineering chief. Bigger Reeve replied, we strip every explosive we've got, every missile warhead, every reactor core we can overload. They come for it. They think it's worth the trouble. The plan was dangerous, but it had one advantage: the Kral's arrogance. They would not expect one small human ship to stand in their way, and they would not believe anything could hurt the spear ship. For 2 days, the Resolute worked in silence. The crew stripped weapons from storage, welded, reinforced blast casings, and wired reactor cores together like a chain of unstable suns. Inside the mining station, the air was still and stale, dust floating like ghosts in the narrow corridors. The engineers rigged the station's main power grid as a trigger one. Overload, and the entire belt would light up like a dying star. On the 3rd day, their long-range sensors caught movement. The Dominion fleet had entered the system's edge. The spear ship was at its heart, gliding forward like a predator drawn to the scent of prey. They're scanning, said the science officer. They'll see the station still got energy. Running, good, Reeves said. Make it look like there's something valuable. Keep the reactors. Fake a cargo manifests in the station's databanks. We want them curious. The Krail moved closer, their formation tightening. Smaller destroyers swept ahead, scanning for traps. They'll find us if they get too close, Harris warned. They won't, Reeves said calmly. We're not staying here to watch it blow. The Resolute slipped back into the asteroid belt, drifting between tumbling rocks the size of buildings. The crew held their breath as the spear ship loomed closer. To the mining station, its black surface swallowing the faint starlight. On the bridge, Reeve watched through the forward screen. His finger hovered over the trigger control. Almost in range, Harris murmured. The spear ship slowed, its escort ships forming a defensive ring around it. Then it began to extend the weapons shaft, a long spear of white energy building. At its core, they're going to fire, the science officer warned. Reeves' jaw clenched. Not before we do. He pressed the trigger. The trigger signal raced through the mining station's power grid, jumping from one overloaded reactor to the next. For a heartbeat, nothing happened, then the entire asteroid belt lit up. A wall. A fire tore outward, rocks shattering into molten shards. The mining station went first, ripped apart in a white-hot flash that made the Resolute's crew shield their eyes even through filtered viewports. The shockwave hit the Dominion escorts. First 3 of them vanished instantly, armor peeling away like burning paper. 2 more spun out of control, their hulls torn open, but the spear ship survived. It reeled under the impact, black plating flaring with strange blue light, but it didn't break. Systems flickered, and the glow of the spear weapon dimmed for a moment, but then it came back, pulsing like a heartbeat. They're charging the weapon, Harris said, voice tight. Reeve didn't waste a second. Evasive course. Take us into the debris field. The Resolute darted between spinning asteroids, the helm officer throwing the ship into sharp rolls and dives to avoid incoming fire. Behind them, the spear ship unleashed its fury. A single beam of white energy lanced through the void, slicing an asteroid in half like it was made of paper. The heat from the strike made Resolute's shields groan. They're locking on again, the science officer warned. Not if we blind them, Reeves said. Launch counterflares full spread. Dozens of bright flares erupted from the ship, scattering heat and energy signatures in every direction. The Kral's targeting systems faltered for just a moment, but a moment was all they needed. Course set for the nebula, the helm officer shouted. The Resolute roared toward a vast cloud of swirling red and gold gas at the system's edge. Inside, sensors would be nearly useless. Navigation would be dangerous. But it was their only chance. The spear ship and its escorts followed, weapons cutting through debris as they pursued. The gap between hunter and hunted closed fast. As they crossed into the nebula, the Resolute's hull shuddered under the sudden pressure of ion storms. Lightning arced across the viewing glass, painting the bridge in flashes of blue, shields holding at 60%. Engineering reported. Keep them alive, Reeves said. Because once the Krail are blind, we become the ghosts in this storm. Behind them, the spear ship slowed, its scans faltering in the thick interference.
Out.
But it didn't stop. It was coming for them. And the Resolute would have to fight not just to survive, but to strike back. The nebula swallowed the Resolute whole. Thick clouds of crimson and gold wrapped around the hole, broken only by flashes of electric blue from hidden ion storms. Sensors stuttered, readings spiking and collapsing in the same second. Stars vanished tonally, the swirling mist remained. Visibility down to nothing, the helm officer reported. If we hit an asteroid in here, we won't see it until the ship shuddered. A chunk of rock, invisible until it scraped along the shields, spun away into the fog. Exactly like that. The helm officer muttered. Reeves stood at the center of the bridge, calm despite the tension. We use this, he said. They can't see us any better than we can see them. It means we're not running anymore. Harris looked up from the tactical station. Sir, are you saying we hunt them? Reeve finished. The Resolute stealth systems came alive. Heat vents shut down. Non-essential lights went dark. And the ship's engines switched to a slow, silent drift. In the mist, they released the first wave of drones. Each was no bigger than a fighter's cockpit, programmed to mimic the Resolute's energy signature. Some drifted toward the spear ship's last known position. Others looped wide to confuse the Kral's scanners. Minutes stretched into hours. Every few moments, a flash of white lit the fog, distant, muffled. The spear ship was firing blindly, striking at shadows. They're wasting shots, Harris whispered. They don't know where we are. Not yet, Reeves said. A sharp ping broke the silence. One of the drones had been destroyed, but not by the spear weapon. By something smaller, faster. They've launched interceptors, the science officer reported. Fast craft with short-range scanners. Reeves studied the display. Good. That means they're spreading out. He ordered the ship into a slow spiral through the fog, using the interference to mask their movement. Then, when one of the interceptors came within range, the Resolute struck railguns, firing once, twice, before drifting back into silence. The enemy craft vanished from sensors. The crew's tension shifted to a quiet, dangerous excitement. They weren't just surviving, they were picking the enemy apart. Hours later, Harris called out, Sir, I think I found something. The spear ship's power readings spike every time it fires. And right after, there's a hesitation, a tiny drop in shielding, maybe 3 seconds long. Reeves' eyes narrowed. A window. Exactly, Harris said. Small, but enough. If we hit them right then, with everything we've got, we might not kill it, Reeves said, but we can take the spear out of the fight. The captain turned to the helm. Get us close. Hide in their blind spots. Wait for them to fire again. Somewhere in the storm, the spear ship loomed like a shadow in a nightmare. The crew of the Resolute braced themselves, every weapon primed. The next time the spear fired, they would be ready. The moment came sooner than anyone expected. Through the thick crimson clouds of the nebula, the spear ship fired again. Its massive white energy shaft lanced forward, lighting the mist with a blinding glow. The Resolute held its breath, drifting just out of the main beam, cloaked and silent. Fire everything, now. Reeves shouted. Railguns, pulse cannons, and missiles unleashed from the Resolute in a coordinated strike. The human ship moved like a shadow, weaving between ion storms and debris as the weapons slammed into the spear ship's exposed weak points. Sparks flared along the black hole. For a moment, the unstoppable giant faltered, the spear weapon sputtered and died. Leaving the flagship momentarily powerless, direct hit. Harris yelled, They can't fire the spear anymore. The crew cheered quietly, but celebration was short-lived. Sensors screamed. 100 Krail ships appeared at the edge of the nebula, carriers, cruisers, and destroyers, forming an armada that outnumbered the Resolute 100 to 1. The spear ship, though crippled, was still alive at the center, now flanked by the remaining fleet. Fleet Command's tight beam came through, urgent and cold. Hold position until reinforcements arrive. Do not engage alone. Reeve cut the transmission. Reinforcements are days away, he said grimly. We fight now or die waiting. The bridge went silent. The crew knew the odds. Every system fired, shields pushed to their limits, engines screaming as the Resolute darted between attacks. Enemy fire tore through the nebula, igniting clouds of gas and rock and brilliant. Deadly explosions, shields at 40%. Engineering reported. Hull integrity dropping. Keep them alive, Reeve barked. We've got one shot at this. The captain made a decision that no manual could guide. He ordered the ship into a suicide run, directly toward the spear. Ship's core reactor. Every maneuver aimed to disrupt its systems while avoiding the incoming swarm. The Krail fleet tightened around them. Missiles and energy beams sliced past, exploding on nearby asteroids, igniting deadly chains of rock. The Resolute dodged with impossible precision, the crew working in perfect unison, knowing a single mistake meant instant death. As they drew closer, human ship launched its final payload, a combination of reactor cores, missiles, and railgun. Slugs packed to detonate at the flagship's core. Brace for impact. Reeve shouted. The payload struck. The spear ship's reactor flared violently, followed by cascading explosions that rippled through the Krail formation. Fire engulfed the fleet, ships spinning into the void as hulls tore apart. The Resolute was battered, systems failing, hull scorched, but it had survived. The spear weapon was destroyed. The armada lay in ruins. The captain exhaled, his face grim but resolute. Signal Fleet Command, he said. The bridge filled with static as they sent a report of victory. Hours later, reinforcements arrived too. Tow the damaged human ship to safety. The legend of one ship holding back the Dominion had begun, one crew defying impossible odds, showing the galaxy that humans could not be stopped. And somewhere in the stars, those who had once feared the human threat now whispered the same thing. Never underestimate them. The Resolute drifted through the debris, battered but alive. Smoke and sparks trailed from its hull, systems barely holding together. Outside, the remnants of the Dominion fleet floated like broken stars. A graveyard of black and silver. Captain Reeves stood at the viewport, staring at the devastation. The spear ship, the weapon that had terrorized countless worlds, was gone. Its core had detonated in a chain reaction, tearing apart the flagship and scattering the fleet. Yet the victory was costly. Several crew members were injured, some critical, and the ship itself was limping on emergency power. Status report, Reeve ordered. Shields at 12%, life support stabilizing, engines at 30%. The engineer replied, "We won't make another jump without full repairs." Harris looked at the tactical display. Most of the fleet is destroyed, but a few cruisers escaped. They'll regroup. This fight isn't over. The captain shook his head. Maybe not. But today we bought the galaxy time. Today we proved that one human warship can change everything. Medics rushed past, tending to the wounded. The crew moved with tired determination, knowing every second counted. Outside, debris glimmered in the cold light of distant stars. Ships they would never forget. Worlds they could not save, but humanity had survived. The first reinforcements arrived hours later. Massive human warships, late but bringing firepower, began sweeping the remaining enemy ships. The survivors of the Dominion's armada had nowhere to run. Reeve allowed himself a small smile. "Prepare the damage report. Send our coordinates. We're going home." The comms officer nodded. "Captain, the transmission is going out. The galaxy is going to know about this." Reeve turned back to the viewport. He watched the stars stretch endlessly ahead, thinking of Earth, of the worlds the Dominion would never reach. He thought of the crew who had risked everything, who had faced impossible odds with courage. Somewhere in the void, the legend of the Resolute began to spread. Across colonies and battlefronts, stories would be told of one small human ship standing against an entire armada and winning. Tales of courage, strategy, and sacrifice. Tales that would inspire generations. Harris spoke softly beside him.
"Do
You think they'll come back?" Reeves' gaze stayed on the distant stars. "Of course. But next time, they'll know humans don't just survive. Humans fight, and we do not stop. The ship powered up for the long journey home, slow but steady. The galaxy had seen the human spirit at its fiercest, and the Krail Dominion would never forget as the Resolute disappeared into the darkness. One thought echoed quietly through the crew. Humanity was no longer a cornered prey. Humanity had become the hunter. And somewhere far away the stars themselves seemed to shimmer with the warning, never underestimate humans. The war was far from over. But one small ship had changed the course of the galaxy forever.